Resiliency and Waterfronts. At this point, we ask that you silence all electronic devices. At no point during today's hearing are you to approach the dais. If you would like to testify today, please see one of the sergeants at arms. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, you may begin.
Thank you, Sergeant. Good afternoon. I am Councilmember Jim Gennaro, Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts. Today we will be hearing intro number 499, sponsored by Councilmember Abreu, in relation to a feasibility study on implementing solar-ready measures for commercial buildings. Next is intro 1271, sponsored by me, in relation to requiring review of the long-term sustainability plan by the Environmental Justice Advisory Board. Next is intro 1302, also sponsored by me, in relation to the reporting requirements of the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, which is their business is now handled by Maki J. And we'll also be hearing pre-considered intro. Oh, it has no number because it's pre-considered, right? It has no number. So we'll be hearing a pre-considered intro, also sponsored by me, in relation to maintenance easements for post-construction stormwater management facilities, the whole SWIP process. And Reso number 926, sponsored by Council Speaker Adams, declaring that New York City adopts the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge. Intro 499 would direct the Department of Buildings, in coordination with DEP, the Fire Department, and other relevant agencies, to conduct a year-long study to determine the feasibility of implementing solar-ready measures for commercial buildings, after which DOB would be required to submit a report with the results of said study to the Speaker of the Council, and to the Mayor. Intro 1270. Okay, that was 499. Now moving on to 1271, the detail. 1271 would require the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, so-called OLTPS, the responsibility of which are currently fulfilled by Maki J, which is, of course, the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, to provide drafts and proposed revisions of the long-term sustainability plans required under Local Law 17 of 2008, otherwise known as Plan YC, to the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, and would require the Environmental Justice Advisory Board to review the drafts and proposed revisions and make recommendations to OLTPS prior to the finalization of the long-term sustainable plans. The whole idea is to cut in the EJ community, to cut them a little more. I asked for a sugar candy, and I got these little dot things or whatever, these little wafer things. It will have to do. And so, where were we? I have to go back. Otherwise known as Plan YC, to the Environmental Justice. Oh, I said that, right. I said that we were going to try to give, more candies. Okay, now we've total upgrade here. And yeah, we're trying to give more input for the EJ community. Next item, the pre-considered intro would streamline the stormwater permitting process, the so-called SWIP process, by allowing developers to obtain stormwater construction permit before executing and recording a maintenance easement. The maintenance easement would instead be required as a condition of obtaining a stormwater maintenance permit. There's been a lot of huffing and puffing over the SWIP process, and we're trying to make it better, and we're going to make it better in cooperation with DEP. We're all on the same page. Next, intro 1302 would require OLTPS to publish a long-term energy plan. OLTPS to publish a long-term energy plan required by Local 248 of 2017 and the Climate Adaptation Plan required by Local Law 122 of 2021 within its update to the Long-Term Sustainability Plan. The bill would also increase the publication frequency of the Climate Adaptation Plan from once every 10 years to once every 4 years. It would also remove the prohibition on members of the NPCC receiving financial compensation for their work and better align the city's climate reporting with the IPCC reporting cycle. That was kind of hard to follow, but we'll, when the administration gives us testimony, we'll have a better understanding. And finally, Reso 926 would serve as the first step in the city's application to join the program, meaning the Climate Smart Cities program, and become a climate smart community. The resolution states that New York City pledges to undergo or engage in 10 actions related to decreasing energy usage, inventorying emissions, engaging in emissions reduction work, and increasing the renewable energy usage and other climate actions. Certainly, we've met those, bars. This would make the city more eligible for funding from the state, which we never get anyway. But we can dream, can't we? I was not reading "We Can Dream, Can't We?" That was from me. At this hearing, I look forward to public feedback on the legislation on the docket today so that we can incorporate your feedback and ensure that these bills are the best and most effective versions of themselves. We look forward to the hearing. We look forward to the testimony by the administration. We are joined by council members Marmorato, Holden, Zhuang, and on Zoom, we have Councilmember Ressler. And, we don't have a quorum though, right?
Yeah, so he can't.
Okay, yep, okay. And I would like to thank the committee staff, legislative councils, Natasha Bynum to my right, and Sierra Townsend, policy analyst Ricky Chawla, and Andrew Bourne, financial analyst Tanvir Singh, as well as my legislative director Josh Gachette, for all their hard work in leading us to this good hearing. I recognize the council members are ready. Okay, it did that. And now I'm going to turn it over to the committee council to give the affirmation to the witnesses before us. And so I recognize the committee council to do that.
Good afternoon. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Great. Please just state your name and position for the in your testimony.
Oh, sure. And it looks like we have actual testimony from thank you, Josh, from DEP, from Maki J, and from buildings, and so there'll be testimony from each of them. Oh, good. That's the way I like it. Make sure you get my picture too. Okay. And. That's okay. It's Friday afternoon. It's been a long week. And so, who's going to go first?
Hi, I can go first.
Okay. Please state your name for the record and proceed. And you'll be testifying on behalf of?
My name is Beth Golub. I'm testifying on behalf of the Department of Buildings.
Department of Buildings. Okay. Let me get to your testimony. Got it right here. Let me make sure I have my pen. It's working. Okay, please.
Great. Okay, good afternoon, Chair Gennaro and members of the committee. My name is Beth Golub, and I am the Director of Sustainability Policy and Legal Affairs at the New York City Department of Buildings. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today regarding Intro 499 in relation to studying the feasibility of implementing solar-ready measures for commercial buildings. We appreciate the Council's continued focus on sustainability and the critical role that buildings play in advancing the city's climate goals. As the agency charged with enforcing the city's construction and energy codes, DOB remains committed to implementing policies that promote energy efficiency, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and ensure safe building practices. In 2019, the Council passed the Climate Mobilization Act, including Local Laws 92 and 94 of 2019, requiring all new buildings and existing buildings undergoing major roof renovations to install either a solar photovoltaic system, a green roof system, or a combination of both. Since the passage of these laws, buildings across the city have been working to incorporate solar systems or green roofs in accordance with these requirements. These efforts are yielding measurable impacts and helping the city advance towards its climate goals. In 2016, there were 3,902 solar jobs permitted across the city. In 2020, following the passage of Local Laws 92 and 94, there were 5,172 solar jobs permitted citywide. The number of solar installations has continued to steadily increase, with 9,118 solar jobs permitted last year in 2024. Additionally, DOB is currently working with stakeholders to update the New York City Energy Conservation Code. We look forward to partnering with the Council later this year to pass the legislation necessary to publish the new code. The Energy Code updates will include new provisions that require on-site renewable energy readiness, including solar. These forthcoming code revisions will align with the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State and further solidify solar-ready construction as a standard requirement. Given the existing requirement for buildings to install solar or green roof systems and the upcoming enhancements to both New York City and state energy codes, we believe that the proposed study is not necessary. The city is already integrating renewable energy into commercial building design and construction, and these efforts continue to evolve through code development and enforcement. We look forward to further discussing this proposal and future enhancements to the New York City Energy Code with the Council. We thank the Council for its leadership on climate and sustainability and for the opportunity to speak today. DOB remains committed to working with you to build a more sustainable and energy-efficient city. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your position on 499. We'll get into that during the question phase. So thank you for that. And I'm just making my little piles here. Okay, who wants to go next? Okay.
MOCEJ can go next.
Sure, please
Sure.
state the witness's name for the record and please continue.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Gennaro and members of the Committee of Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts. My name is Elijah Hutchinson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, or MOCEJ for short, or MOCEJ, which is the first mayoral office to have environmental justice within its name. I'm joined today by my colleague, Paul Lozito, MOCEJ Deputy Executive Director for Planning, Adaptation, and EJ. And for those who may not be familiar, MOCEJ works to protect all New Yorkers from the threats of climate change and extreme weather by creating and advancing policies, programs, and projects that secure the city while making our critical infrastructure cleaner and more reliable. And throughout all of our work and decision-making, we prioritize addressing environmental inequity in all of our communities. Since joining MOCEJ as Executive Director in September of 2023, we have undertaken great strides to advance efforts to combat climate change and incorporate environmental justice into the city's fabric, demonstrating our ability to get stuff done, including, on my very first day, we released the city's first long-term energy plan called Power Up. Power Up in NYC outlines 29 clean energy initiatives centered on equity, affordability, and health, and our move away from polluting fossil fuels and operationalizing our clean energy future. We also released Environmental Justice NYC Report, the first comprehensive study of the disproportionate environmental burdens impacting low-income communities and communities of color in all 5 boroughs, and an accompanying interactive online mapping tool that provides policymakers, community leaders, and everyday New Yorkers with over 100 different data layers relevant to understanding EJ concerns within New York City and within their community. As outlined in Plan NYC, we're also working with agency partners to launch the city's very first Blue Sky Housing Mobility Program to acquire homes facing a pronounced flood risk where there are no other viable alternatives to reduce that risk. And we're deep in the planning right now of the city's first urban forest plan with New York City Parks, the City Parks Foundation, and other stakeholders, which will equitably expand the city's tree canopy to 30% and keep New Yorkers safe from extreme heat, flooding, beautify streets, and clean air. With the Office of Management and Budget, we also just recently released the city's first ever climate budget publication through FY25 executive budget. And climate budgeting includes scientific-based climate considerations into our budget decision-making. And we're in the process right now of expanding and relaunching the New York City Accelerator and have developed financing tools and innovative mechanisms to accelerate Local Law 97 compliance by 2030, including the establishment of the J51 Reform Tax Incentive Program, which will help modernize our building stock and reduce utility costs. And the list goes on of things our office is working on right now, but with the release of the EJ report behind us, we're now taking what we learned and applying it to develop a multi-agency, citywide environmental justice plan. Working with the experts serving on the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, or EJAB, this next step in the EJ NYC initiative aims to level the playing field for all New Yorkers. The EJAB is a critical advisory body for MOCEJ, as they assist us in ongoing EJ efforts and are charged with ensuring our work is grounded in the lived experience of New Yorkers in the city's environmental justice communities. Collaborating with more than 20 city agencies and mayoral offices, we're developing recommendations for citywide initiatives and agency-specific actions that target investments in communities and public spaces, integrate environmental justice considerations into our city systems and budgeting, enable resilient and efficient building upgrades to protect residents from climate threats and rising energy costs, and improve accountability through data transparency and communications while promoting collaboration with community-based organizations who are directly serving these environmental justice communities. We are also advancing environmental justice through other citywide efforts, including the aforementioned urban forest plan that will address extreme heat, ensure every neighborhood can benefit from trees, and will keep our neighborhoods cool, absorb stormwater, beautify streets, and clean our air. Turning to today's legislation, Intro 1271 would require MOCEJ to share a draft of the long-term sustainability plan, also known as Plan YC, with EJAB, the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, prior to its release every 4 years. Through this bill, the EJAB could make recommendations and propose revisions to the draft Plan YC. The administration is in full alignment with the intent of this bill and is excited to work with Council to ensure environmental justice continues to be a top consideration in all of Plan YC policies. However, MOC suggests modifications to the order of operations on a consultation with the Environmental Justice Advisory Board. We suggest that the proposed local law include an obligation to MOCEJ to collect information and recommendations from the Environmental Justice Advisory Board as part of the analysis which informs the final recommendations in Plan YC. Our experience in working with the Environmental Justice Advisory Board and Plan YC has been that early consultation allows for more opportunities to incorporate suggestions instead of waiting to modify existing recommendations at the end of the process. This achieves the same desired outcome, but is more efficient and streamlined from a process standpoint and aligns more with the procedural justice goals outlined within the Environmental Justice NYC report. On Intro 1302, we appreciate Chair Gennaro's leadership on this topic. Introduction 1302 integrates the objectives of the Long-Term Sustainability Plan, or Plan YC, the Long-Term Energy Plan, the Adaptation Plan, and other MOCEJ initiatives into one comprehensive, cohesive framework. When MOCEJ was created, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, the Mayor's Office of Climate Resiliency were all consolidated under one structure, as well as the legacy requirements and obligations stemming back to the original Office of the Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, or OLTPS. This bill provides a more streamlined and aligned set of mandates for our office and allows us to look at the cumulative impacts of the Intro 1302 to provide a standardized and consistent set of opportunities for public review and input on the city's policies on all climate-related matters, which MOCJ fully supports. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Director. Okay, Commissioner Director, I had to make sure I called people by the right title. And so, okay, appreciate your good testimony. And so I guess that leaves DEP.
Okay, I'm up. Good afternoon, Chair Gennaro, members of the Environmental Protection Committee. I am Deputy Commissioner of Sustainability, Angela Licata, from the Department of Environmental Protection, and I am here today to discuss the pre-considered intro T 2025-3757, which relates to maintenance easements for post-construction stormwater management facilities and civil penalties for violations of the Water Pollution Control Code. To start, we thank Chair Gennaro for sponsoring this bill and the committee for hearing it today. I also want to thank the council staff we have been working with on this legislation. The pre-considered bill would make two straightforward changes to improve the stormwater management and permitting process and strengthen DEP's enforcement of water pollution controls. As the Deputy Commissioner of Sustainability, I oversee the teams that provide planning, design, construction, and operations and maintenance of much of the distributed nature-based stormwater controls around the city, including DEP's rain gardens and other green infrastructure. Commissioner Agrawala and I have discussed this work at several recent council hearings, so I will not go into great detail here, but anybody who wants to learn more about our green infrastructure work should look at our 2024 Green Infrastructure Annual Report, which could be found on the Green Infrastructure page of DEP's website. Green infrastructure is a powerful tool for stormwater management that improves the health of our water bodies, enhances our sewer operations, and distributes important co-benefits that come along with an increase in our green spaces, like urban heat island mitigation or diverse habitat for wildlife. We've been building green infrastructure for stormwater control since 2011 and have invested more than $1.4 billion, with much of that investment happening within the public right-of-way. But more than 70% of the city is comprised of public or privately held lots, and capturing stormwater on these lots and doing so as they redevelop is a cost-effective strategy for enhancing flood resilience through stormwater management and improving water quality through stormwater treatment. This is why we also developed and implement stormwater regulations, including the Stormwater Construction and Maintenance Permitting Program, which is the focus of the legislation being considered today. DEP launched the Stormwater Construction and Maintenance Permitting Program in 2019 as required under the New York City Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4 permit, issued to the city by New York State's Department of Environmental Conservation. This program existed prior to 2019, but it was then implemented by New York State DEC. And that had been since the Clean Water Act was amended to include regulatory requirements for MS4s. Under the MS4 permit, we are required to make program enhancements to include more development sites than DEC was regulating. So for example, the qualifying soil disturbance threshold was reduced from 1 acre to 20,000 square feet to account for the more typical redevelopment projects in New York City. In 2022, the city program was further expanded to apply to combined sewer areas to help meet both combined sewer overflow reduction goals and sewer operations goals. This change is known as the Unified Stormwater Rule because it created a uniform stormwater policy across sewer capacity and water quality goals and provided more upfront clarity for calculating the requirements. Anyone developing sites must adhere to these rules, including DEP and other agencies. These regulations have been essential as we evaluate the impacts on our infrastructure of new growth through rezonings and other major developments. In fact, these regulations were so important that they were expedited to meet the Gowanus rezoning schedule so that we could ensure that all redeveloped sites would comply with the enhanced on-site stormwater retention and detention requirements, allowing for a net zero CSO outlook for the Gowanus Canal and reducing wet weather impacts to our sewers. We are just seeing some of these green infrastructure practices come online now 3 years later. While the benefits of this program are tremendous, we acknowledge that we have work to do to ease the burden on the developer community. We want to support the work that developers do. Our requirements are in place because the opportunity to establish stormwater management upon reconstruction is so great. We have to manage, we have to have management systems on private land, not just public space. So we have to seize these opportunities for on-site controls. We want the permitting program process to be as smooth as possible, so we have been assessing the process, and for the past 18 months, we have been intensively workshopping process improvements with developers, representatives, and architecture and engineering firms preparing these applications. Legislative change is one of the steps that we hope to take to ease the process for applicants. The legislation facilitates rule changes that will streamline parts of the process. Other improvements to the program will include building out and enhancing our stormwater permit tracking system, which was not fully completed when the program was expanded and is cumbersome for applicants and DEP review staff alike. We look forward to continuing working with Council on this legislation to ensure that it implements the changes in a way that best complements our other improvements and that benefits all stakeholders, including DEP, developers, and all the residents of the city. In closing, I want to reiterate DEP thanks you for your partnership on this issue and for the opportunity to testify about this legislation today. My colleagues and I look forward to continuing our partnership, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I certainly appreciate your good testimony. And I think, do we have any? Okay. And let me say this offline. Okay, as is my practice, I make little notes in the margins of the witness statements. I think I'll just, I always try to get to the members who have questions, and I don't want to sit up here for a long time before they have an opportunity. So I'm quickly going to go through some of the notes that I made in the margins of the statements. That should go pretty quickly. And then we have Councilmember Holden that has questions, and I have other prepared questions. So it'll be my reaction to the statements, then questions from members, and then my longer set of questions. Do I need more candy or a drink of water? I'm going to go with the water. Yeah. I'm chairing this committee for a long time, and this is my first lollipop that I've had sort of like on the record, so to speak. Nothing, no giggles, no laughs, no nothing, nothing, nothing. Everybody just, yeah, smirks? Okay, good. DEP first, thank you, Madam Deputy Commissioner, for your good testimony. You mentioned in your statement the process that me and my team at the council and DEP and folks in the community who have to comply with the SWIP and all that, which not only includes like the private development sector, but city agencies, and so so we have this very well intended and needed needed process by which we have to harness all the capabilities that we have to manage stormwater. We're going crazy here, right? So we're trying to increase the capacity of the infrastructure that we have in the street, and we have green infrastructure. And when it comes to development or redevelopment, we have to seize those opportunities and make it better for those that have to comply and better for those that have to review. Do I have two statements? Oh, I have two statements together. In talking about the desire to work with the council to implement changes, and are there things in the offing that are not mentioned in your statement that are in sort of like the incubation stage of how we might make this a little better, or does the legislation as written kind of speak to the to the main thrust of what we're going for? Anything to, if you could share anything in that realm, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, of course. Well, first, and thank you for acknowledging as well that it's a very well-intentioned program, and we have been studying all of the pinch points. One of the ways in which we know that we can improve the review process is to shorten the time frame between reviews. And one of the ways that we can do that is we have what is known as an erosion sediment control. And that is what protects sites during construction from any material leaving the site, construction-related runoff that might happen during a rain event when soil is exposed and disturbed. And we have been receiving reports from the engineers and the architects for how they might control that potential for erosion during construction. Sometimes these are over 100 pages long, with a lot of review, back and forth. You missed that, you didn't include this. So at this point in time, what we think is a much better use of everyone's time is we get that document, do one review, submit the checklist and say, this is now approved, your erosion sediment control. With the checklist, you know what you need to do in the field is where we really see the problems, and that's where we want to focus our attention, is sending out inspectors when we have problems, either citizen complaints or we want to audit certain number of sites each and every year, so that we think is going to be a much better use of everybody's time. Because you could have an engineer and an architect do a perfect job even on an erosion sediment control plan, but if the contractor has no intention of complying, that's where the problem occurs.
Right. Well, we certainly appreciate that. And because your testimony was so comprehensive, that's all I have in my kind of first round. So, okay, and then the next statement, yeah. Okay, this is for Director Hutchinson from Maki J. And what did I highlight here? You talk on the second page of your statement, or at least the second page of the statement that I have in the large print edition. Thank you for providing that. My eyesight is not what it used to be. Tell us a little more about the Blue Sky Housing Mobility Program. And I'm not familiar with it. You made reference to it, and I'm going to use this opportunity to get better familiar and those in the millions of people in TV land who are watching us right now.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Gennaro, for the question. While I was summarizing some of the things that are keeping MOCEJ busy these days, one of those things is launching a citywide Blue Sky Housing Mobility Program that would be optional for people who wanted to elect to move and have the city acquire their property because they're facing extreme climate risks, that the city have a program available for those people that is not entirely reactionary during storms, but it is available during all times, which is why we call it a blue sky program. So
Where would the money come from to do this?
we're coordinating with the state to try and get some funding for this, but we are right now going through the process of program design and identifying resources that would be available. And we have the person here, Deputy Executive Paul Lozito, who is designing the Blue Sky program right now, who could also answer some more detailed questions for you.
Sure, if you want to just state your name for the record, give us like a little overview of where you think this may go over the short term.
Sure, happy to answer your questions, Council Member. So as outlined in Plan NYC in 2023, we made a commitment as an office to develop a blue sky buyout program by 2026. Over the course of the last year, we've been doing program development with a constellation of agency partners. And what we're in the program design process of doing is identifying how to identify volunteer parties that would want to sell their property to the city, try to identify willing agency partners to acquire the lands, because what we've found through this process is it's important to start at the end to understand what you're going to do with the land, because that helps give you a continuity of the process for folks. And then we're working out many additional details, including the funding and financing, as Director Hutchinson has outlined. We're towards the tail end of the design of the process. We're looking forward to sometime later this year making available for public commentary our draft recommendations for a evergreen program design for this program, which would be intended to be available during what we call gray skies post-disaster, to be scaled up to acquire lands wherever necessary and prudent, but also over the course of a period of time, allow the city a framework to identify properties, acquire those lands, find willing agency partners to allow homeowners in areas of extreme flood risk to move out of harm's way.
And this is all willing buyer, willing seller. There's no thought of
Completely
eminent
voluntary.
domain here. And with regard to, is it envisioned that something like this could happen absent significant state support or state dollars? And I know that there are a lot of state environmental programs that we don't really get the benefit of. We represent half this, 45% of the state, half the state, whatever. But we get very meager amounts when it comes to almost every environmental program, either funded directly by Albany or federal money that goes through Albany to us. Any way to pull this off without money that comes from outside the city's coffers?
We're currently in that process of right now of trying to figure out every creative means to resource the program. The program design is intended to be flexible. So to your point, federal resources have historically been available through the Community Development Block Grant Program, the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, BRIC Program, and other programs. We have been in contact with our state partners on the up to $250 million available through the Environmental Bond Act to acquire properties.
We're not getting any Bond Act money, but still, like I said before.
And we're looking at all of
okay.
our options.
And to the extent that we can, that is, the council can partner you, we can partner with you to do a resolution in support of the state, giving us our fair share of Bond Act money. And it's one thing just to say that in the abstract, but also to point to specific things that we need that Bond Act money for, where, we remain, ready and willing to work with you to send the message to the state if that would be helpful. And so, thank you for that. If I ask you about the financing tools, about Local Law 97, we'll end up turning this into an oversight hearing, which it's not. It's a legislative hearing. But, okay. I got a goodie for you. Okay. Okay, about the urban forest plan, Parks Foundation, other stakeholders, which will equitably expand the city's tree canopy to 30%. Let me tell you what's going on. You may or may not know this. Parks Department would know this, and I have a bill in on this. This is a way to keep old growth trees from coming down. Every street in New York City, the city retains for itself a right-of-way. And that right-of-way, so, within that right-of-way, it controls activities within that right-of-way, and people are limited as to what they can do within the confines of that right-of-way. Now, in my area of Queens, the right-of-way that the city reserves for itself, some streets, it's 50 feet wide, centered in the middle of the street, and in some streets it's 60 feet. Let me just use my block for an example. The right-of-way on my block is 60 feet wide. The street is 28 feet wide. So when you go from the center of the street, you go 30 feet each way, and 14 feet from the center of the street, you hit the curb. So the city's right-of-way goes past the curb, 16 feet past that. And so it goes past that little grass strip between the sidewalk and the curb, goes over the sidewalk, and goes onto the people's front lawns. I live in a single-family neighborhood, and so there are many times that I have seen old-growth trees about to be cut down, and I call the Forestry Division of the Parks Department. I get them out there, and they measure, and if any part of that tree, and a place like Jamaica State says trees are like 100 feet tall. I mean, like you can't buy trees like that, and so and the canopy that they provide, and so I have a bill that we're trying to advance. But if you want to just steal it and go and do it as policy, that's fine. Like, we can still do the bill, but right now, I think one of the sort of unprobed areas in reducing the city's tree canopy is to make sure that old growth trees don't get cut down. And this is a great way to do that. And it would require presumably, tree contractors, garden services, whatever. But, like the people who take down big trees, for them to be, and it's no secret who they are. They have some sort of trade association or whatever, and whether they're based within the city or outside the city, if they do business within the city, we know who they are. And there is got to be some way to, communicate to them how they can ascertain the right-of-way on, let's say, someone wants them to do a job. And so they should look up whether or not that tree is within the city's right-of-way. And if they want to ignore that, I think that's where we come in, and we, indicate what they're going to be looking at. If they, remove a tree that they, as a contractor, should have known better not to remove. Akin to what a homeowner would face from the Parks Department if they take away that, like a tree that's between the curb and the sidewalk. Everybody knows that's a city tree. But there's this notion among tree contractors, some of whom I think know better, that if it's on the property side of the sidewalk, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 grand or whatever that's there for the taking by taking that tree down. And they're going to take that tree down, they're going to grind that stump, and, within a couple of weeks, no one's going to know that tree was ever there. And I don't know the extent to which, I don't know the extent to which the tree has a sense of how many trees are within these right-of-ways. So I don't think the city even knows. But I don't think they're mapped, so to speak. I think certain city trees are mapped if they're between the curb and the sidewalk. And but on the other side of the sidewalk, I think that's the Wild West. But I mean, we tamed the Wild West once upon a time in this country. tamed it, or, well, we did whatever we did. But you know, certainly, I think that, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of trees, of old growth trees, are we losing when they're just low-hanging fruit? And if we put all our minds together, we could figure that out. And so, and I'm making a, you know, I'm nodding to staff as well. I know we're working on that bill, but, you know, nothing stopping the people who are, you know, doing their urban forest plan and all this, and like the tree canopy to 30%. Nothing stopping the city from just doing what it needs to do to, you know, inform people, impose penalties or whatever. A homeowner that takes down a city tree, it's a huge, you know, amount of money that they get, that they get fined. So I'm just trying to preserve trees. You know, so are you. Now, what I just said, did you know any of that?
We're in the process, council member, of drafting the recommendations for the urban forest plan. We were made aware of your bill. We're going to examine your bill and see if it can be incorporated into the plan. We're at the point now where we're talking with our city agency partners. We have a stakeholder advisory committee of public partners, private partners, and nonprofit partners. And
Okay, well, the answer is,
So,
should have
yes.
been like, of course I knew that, and we're working to like do that, you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah, so that is something we have in our mind.
I wanted to add, we also have a citywide survey on urban forest that's live right now if people are looking to provide input to us. We've done borough-based kickoffs of the urban forest plan that just completed. We started in Staten Island a couple of weeks ago, and we just completed our citywide virtual kickoff. But if people have more input or want to give us more ideas for the urban forest plan,
Well, I think certainly it would be very important to include trees that are within the city's domain, that are inside the city's right-of-way. Those are New York City trees, and no one gets to, you know, mess with them. I planted 2 trees right at the front of my, I planted 2 trees, and I know that they're city trees now. And like I get it, but how many people know that? So, you know, to the extent that there's a mapping effort going on right now, I think it should endeavor to include trees that are within the city's right-of-way and therefore cannot be cut down by homeowners. And so I think that would be, and I'm not making this up. I mean, I've called, like, the Parks Forestry Division. They come out to where the person is just about to, you know, fire up the chainsaw, and they take a measurement, and if any part of that tree is inside the city's right-of-way, then the tree can't come down. And so there you have it. All right, and I'll do my formal questions. So that's my first pass on Maki J, and hey, what up in the buildings? Is this the? I think I can get to this in my formal questioning. So, problem buildings, like, you're off the hook for now, okay? And with that, we still have, okay. I'm going to come back with my formal questions, but it's my pleasure to recognize my good friend, Councilmember Bob Holden, for questions. Bob, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. A couple of questions about environmental justice communities. Is it solely based on income?
No, we have metrics that we've developed in coordination with the state using their disadvantaged criteria. And when we pool them together in environmental justice communities or neighborhoods, we are pooling census tracts together that are contiguous, that have a certain set of criteria that we then group together and call those.
So, for instance, my communities, which is the middle income, I would say, working class areas. But
Yeah.
as far as environmental challenges, Let's talk about that, because I'm not included, at least my communities were told, we're not included on the environmental justice communities. That means I can't get trees planted until 2036 now from the New York City Parks, the Department of Parks, because I'm not an environmental justice community. Yet, let me just ask the question. Yet, my communities are under a takeoff and landing pattern to LaGuardia Airport. That's one. We also have the Long Island Expressway cutting through our neighborhoods. We have the BQE cutting on the edge of our district, and I got the Jackie Robinson. And since we're 100 feet above sea level, most of my district, we get storms that knock out a good percentage of our trees. Yet I put in money for tree planting, and I can't get it because it's going to be way into the future. I might not even be on this planet anymore before I see another tree, even though I put money into my budget. So I just had a storm yesterday that knocked out several trees because, again, we're on a higher elevation in most of my district. So I'm asking you is, how do I get on the list? Because we are faced with all these challenges of pollution. We are faced with, we love trees, yet I've spoken to DEP many times at these hearings when I got utility companies coming in, putting in, gas lines, and then we have more concrete than we started. And I don't know, Commissioner, how do we get to a point where I can say, I got to get more grass in my community on the curb, and yet every time for years now I've been asking. I got a project starting up today. They're doing every block, and I get more concrete and less grass at the strip. What are we doing about that? Again, I get nowhere at these hearings. Nothing happens. So I'm going to get more concrete. I got front yards from DOB, by the way, telling me that there's no violation when I have photographs of the guys paving over his entire front yard. So we're putting bioswales in, and yet we're losing ground here. And I have tremendous stormwater runoff into the Newtown Creek, which gets more polluted. So I'm trying to combat all of this, but I'm getting no cooperation from any of the agencies that you represent. And that's true, because the proof is in, I'm going to show you photographs, hundreds of photographs where I have more concrete after a utilities project, yet nobody is stepping in. Can anybody answer that? When are we going to see some relief on utilities telling them they have to put a grass strip at the curb, which is city property? Why are they concrete? Why is it all concrete? What's DEP doing about it? What's environmental justice doing about it? What's DOB doing?
I'm not going to cross swords
Yeah,
with Bob if you're waiting for me, so.
No. We can follow up with you on who would be the best person to answer a question about the sidewalk, but we're not DOT here at the moment. But you will, okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you, council member. And we did look into that. The problem, as I understand it, is they're just not required to do it. And there is no, I think we would possibly need to have some kind of legislation. We may need to have a
Yeah,
rule
see,
change.
that's what I asked, and
that
I never got an answer at the last hearing. I asked that.
Well, we did
Let me
look
just jump in
into
for a
it.
second if I could, just make a note to staff, to Josh. Like, you hear what's going on, right? And so why don't we just put in an LS request?
We did.
Oh, okay.
We did. However, that's going to take, again, it won't be in this council probably, but I don't think that the city can say, well, we need legislation. I just think it's city property. You just have to, you could do an executive order. The mayor's office can do an executive order. Say, again, we have a stormwater problem, especially in the 30th district. It runs into Newtown Creek. What are we doing about it? Here's, you're putting in bioswales for billions of dollars, yet you're losing ground on, storm runoff.
So we're in a process right now of coming up with the recommendations, the policy recommendations that will come out of the environmental justice plan. So we can take this, we can talk with the agencies, we can analyze it and understand what the barriers and limitations on, and then suggest some policy proposals and
Yeah, and then you
recommendations
guys,
that would
and
be
then
part of EJNYC.
yeah, and then DEP, the commissioner comes out in favor of the city of Yes, which is going to create more concrete. And I think that there was a conflict, and I told him that there's a conflict with being the climate czar and then being the DEP commissioner, because what you're doing is you're creating more concrete, you're creating more building space in challenged neighborhoods, and then you're not coming up with a solution for storm runoff. So these are basic stuff. You can come up with all the task force and all the committees you want, but on the boots on the ground, nothing is happening, and we're losing the battle. And the Newtown Creek gets more polluted, and I get more flooding. I have more pollution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to follow up on that?
I did want to add that we are looking specifically at concrete and low carbon alternatives and substitutes for concrete through the Executive Order 23, which we had 2 years ago from the administration to look at new ways of decarbonizing some of our capital projects and looking at embodied carbon. So it is a work effort and separate work stream to try to decarbonize some of those pieces, specifically looking at concrete and steel as being particularly problematic in the construction sector. And it's something that we're looking at as part of our clean construction initiatives. So this is a topic we're looking at. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just jump in with a couple of observations. First of all, Councilmember Holden, we all love RIT, but when it comes to the city of Yes, I mean, it's the mayor's program. He's the mayor's commissioner. Yeah, I don't know how much latitude he had to kind of like not get behind city of Yes. That's just kind of like how that goes. And also, I'm also directing staff to take a look at the bill that you indicate Councilmember Holden has already put in. Was that from you, Bob? Was that your bill?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
No, because I said that
We put in a request from the last hearing because I
okay.
asked.
I mean, your office, right?
Yeah, I think we were talking to your office too, so I think we're both put in a request. I think your office might have done it too.
Okay, well, I can.
You'll be here next year, not me, so that's why.
I'm. Yeah. I wake up every day and say, okay, I'm glad for another day. So let me just add to that, God willing, and so I'll ask committee counsel to, and if a bill is in and it's not mine, there's this like veil of confidentiality and privilege that's that's around that. But if you want to suspend your privilege and give me the ability to me and my team to take a look at it, then we can do. Although it would go to, yeah. And so I would ask committee counsel to engage with your legislative director and just see what planet that or what where that legal services request, that bill drafting request is, where that's at right now. It sounds important, and as chair, if I could help to move it along, I would certainly like to do that. But thank you, Councilmember Holden, for bringing good common sense issues to light as you always do, and so thank you. Okay, the Department of Buildings is no longer off the hook. Okay. In your statement, you make the statement, and I can see really well the paper now, but now when I look at you, I really can't see anything. And so, see, now I can see you, but now I can't see this. So all right, I know you're there, okay? So now I don't know where you are, but in your statement, let's see, given the existing requirement for buildings to install solar or green roof systems in the upcoming enhancements and the upcoming enhancements of both the New York City and state energy codes, we believe that the proposed study is not necessary. I just want you to elaborate a little more on that. You obviously have looked at the, oh, hang on. Yeah. I thought the Councilmember Abreu might be here. It's his bill. It's not. But if you can elaborate a little more on why you think that the study that he calls for in his bill. Am I on that bill? Am I on that bill? I don't know. No, don't worry. We'll talk. And so, what's that? Okay. I'm on the bill. Uh-oh. And so, just elaborate a little more because, sometimes we get a reply like, good intent, we want to work with you and stuff like that. Normally, we don't get the point blank, the proposed study is not necessary. But if you can expand a little bit on that.
Sure, absolutely.
And now I'm putting my glasses on so I can see you as you're
Great.
doing.
So, so as I described in my testimony,
You got to turn your mic on.
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you got to move it close. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so as I described in my testimony, the council did pass Local Laws 92 and 94 in 2019. So those laws include a requirement for any building, any new building, or any building doing significant construction on its roof to install as much solar or green roof or both as possible. And in coordination with that law, there is a state property tax abatement to cover a good proportion, up to 30% of the costs of the installation. So we have seen solar jobs steadily increasing.
Right.
We do know of some barriers to installation. For example, there might be mechanical equipment on a roof that makes it prohibitive, or a roof might be shaded or vulnerable to development that would result in shade. So not every building is a good candidate for solar, but we don't have a concern about the buildings that are good candidates seeing it as an attractive option.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get that on the record, so thank you for that.
Great.
What we got here? Start right here? Okay, all right. I'm being coached, If you don't like the question, it's her fault. And so, okay, how would commercial solar-ready measures differ from residential solar-ready measures? Does that have enough context that you can answer that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So the way the bill defines commercial, it references the energy code, and so it's really a matter of residential being small, 1 to 4 family homes like you described in your neighborhood, and then commercial is essentially everything else. So the technology that's needed to prepare a building that's a small 1 to 4 home, or any building that can be as big as, the buildings covered by Local Law 97, 25,000 square feet or more, the technology, the technical requirements are different, but there are not really structural barriers for commercial buildings to being solar ready. It's more about the roof itself being able to support the solar panels, and whether then that roof would be a good producer of energy due to shade or other issues. For the energy use in the building, the times at which the solar would be active might not match the use of the building. So there are a lot of reasons why solar makes sense for some commercial buildings and not others, but it's not because of structural barriers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a question on Intro 1271, the EJ bill. In relation to requiring the review of long-term sustainability plan by, how would greater involvement by EJ improve Plan YC? I mean, you've already testified that you have Well, let me not put, words in your mouth. I asked a question. I should be polite enough to let you answer it.
Sure, and we appreciate the question because there's so many different ways in which the Environmental Justice Advisory Board works with us, both on Plan YC and just on the normal development of policy and programs.
Who makes those appointments, by the way, to the EJAB?
Sure. So currently the EJAB is co-chaired with us with the WE Act for environmental justice, and we have representatives that are appointed both by the mayor and council who are on the board.
No, I just wanted to know. You don't have to read the names of the people who are on. I just want to know that, like, the process. That's all.
Yeah. So the EJAB was just stipulated and has come together, and it's only in its second year since we were established as an environmental justice body in addition to a climate office. We still do need speaker and council appointments for Environmental Justice Advisory Board. So that has been something
Shame on
that
us.
has been somewhat of a backlog, but there's lots of coordination and transition going on. So we have a robust, active Environmental Justice Advisory Board currently, and we're currently working with both the formal appointees and others who we consider plan contributors. So we don't try to limit engagement through the Environmental Justice Advisory Board. We have others who also coordinate with us. But the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, in our proposed modification to your recommendation, we're interested in getting their input and feedback earlier and informing the analysis. As we know from working with the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, we can't do environmental justice by adding it on at the end. And it's important for procedural justice to include them in the formulation of the recommendations. And so we agree with your wholehearted attempt to include environmental justice and actually suggest just some process improvements to make sure we truly get at the coordination with them.
Just hang on a second. We would be most receptive to any kind of language changes that you could put forward to help us achieve, what you think would be a way forward for this bill, according to, getting folks in earlier at the front end rather than at the back end. So we'd be very receptive, and you know how to contact the committee council, and so we would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sure, you bet. Oh, I should do this. Okay, moving on to Intro 1302. This is the reporting consolidation bill. A whole bunch of questions. Let's jump to question 4. Question 1, 2, 3 didn't make it, and so this bill dissolves the New York City Climate Change Adaptation Force. This bill dissolves the New York City Climate Change Adaptation Task Force and consolidates the report regularly published by the task force with the city's climate adaptation plan. And so, the kind of a big move there. And does MOCEJ believe it's appropriate to dissolve the Climate Change Adaptation Task Force? I mean, I actually created it, but I'm always trying to do different things and figure out, move the chess pieces around on the board to get to checkmate faster, And so, so there's the question: does MOCEJ believe it's appropriate to dissolve the Climate Adaptation Task Force? Of course, given what we propose happen after that.
Yes, we proposed a new structure for coordination through a task force that would include representation and additional topics and actually expand what we currently use the Sustainability Advisory Board for and these other task forces for to be in one new integrated task force covering multiple topics, and then dividing that task force into subsets of topic areas so that people with unique specializations and interests, whether it's on energy policy or resilience or adaptation, can participate within those more smaller dedicated forums. But the goal is to actually bring them all together so that they can synthesize and report information in ways that are truly helpful to council and the public.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. You know, I'm a real enemy of sort of like the silo mentality. We have, you know, various silos and they're doing what they're doing. They're not talking to one another, or it's not the same, you know, kind of open collaboration that you would have if everybody's getting together and just going through it. So thank you for that answer. Pursuant to local law, the city's climate adaptation plan must propose additional strategies to address climate change. Arguably, I love to argue, arguably the most recent climate adaptation plan, Adapt NYC, does not fulfill this requirement, as it primarily summarizes existing climate change adaptation strategies. So what does it say? It says that that the whole goal is, what? Oh, just keep going? Oh, yeah, and so, okay, so sub-question, so the question that follows that statement, will the administration commit to considering new climate adaptation strategies in the next climate adaptation plan, which would be required in 2028 if this bill were to be enacted?
Okay. Thank you for your question. So the answer to your question is yes. Part of the benefit of the consolidated planning effort is that we will be able to appreciate adaptation, sustainability, and energy all at the same time. So that will help us really isolate and hone in on additional risks that might emerge over the course of a period of time, as well as visiting adaptation as part of our normal processes on a more frequent basis.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, going back to the whole SWIP thing. Question, what's the difference, I guess this is at the basic level, what's the difference between a stormwater construction permit and a stormwater maintenance permit? New Yorkers want to know, you know.
The stormwater construction permit is what allows for the post-construction stormwater measure to be implemented, and the maintenance permit is what comes at the very end of the line, which allows for continued inspection and enforcement.
Okay.
So it's most simply put.
Yes, and all New Yorkers are breathing a sigh of relief now that they know that. And so, how long does DEP take to issue a stormwater permit today? And following that up, how does this duration impact building development and the city in general? I guess this is what we're trying to get at, you know, but please.
Yeah, frankly, our opinion, obviously, Commissioner Agrawal and the whole DEP team supports the mayor's agenda for affordable housing, and we want to see the burden eased on the development community. So the whole process is taking too long. It's a short answer. It's somewhere between 7 and 9 months. And there's a lot of hand-holding going on. There's been also an awful lot of training. But the program itself, obviously there's a ramp up. There's information that needs to be exchanged and lessons that need to be learned, and developers that want to test our mettle in terms of the hierarchy for green infrastructure. Do we really mean it? Can they get away with something less than that? So there has been a lot of growing pains, and I believe that will be eased. But there's also a lot of process improvements that are necessary that we're firmly committed and understand that we can still achieve our goals and ease the burden for time on the developers. What we would ultimately like to see is no greater than 2 submissions. So they submit an application, we may have comments, they address the comments, and they're done. Now what we're seeing is sometimes 4 passes back and forth.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the approach. I mean, I've been in government 42 years, and so often I've seen reluctance and recalcitrance, big word, on the part of government. That's usually their answer is like, we came up with this, and this is the way we do it, and like that's that. And so this is not what we're getting with the Adams administration and with DEP. We see a problem and we try to figure out a way to do it better. And so have always appreciated I've always appreciated the cooperation that DEP tries to provide when faced with a problem that can be made better, and that is okay. We're getting close. We're getting close. This is still a SWIP thing. How will increasing the maximum penalty for violations of the Water Pollution Control Code to $15,000 improve the permitting process? And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about that earlier, whereby we're going to put less burden on review of the erosion sediment control plans and place more emphasis on inspection in the field. And this will protect the good actors, right? So they're going to move more quickly through the process, and those that want to defy the erosion sediment control plans that they've submitted that are on file or that they know must be implemented in accordance with the regulations and with our design manuals, they'll be the ones that receive those higher penalties.
Right, okay. So, I mean, the phrase carrot and stick means something, and that is a time-tested concept, and we're going down here, right? For the resolution. Oh, are they going to testify in a resolution? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. This gets to the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge. I have 2 questions on that. To what degree can state climate grant funding make up for the loss of federal climate funding under the current presidential administration? Yeah, state funding, federal funding, yeah, tough question. But to what degree can state climate grant funding make up for the loss of federal climate funding under the current presidential administration?
Hi. We need every dollar we can get, and we've always been pursuing all avenues. Our agency, MOCEJ, was the beneficiary of a lot of federal funding through IRA bill and other discretionary programs that are at risk, particularly resilience funds and environmental justice funds, particularly the ones through the EPA. We are assessing for each one of the things that we're trying to do, how to still do them and put one in front of the next, and find alternative sources of funding. But we absolutely need to have conversations with the state about fair share in New York City and getting every available resource that we can to meet our local programs. And we're actively looking at everything we're trying to do and pivot resources accordingly.
And you know, just for the benefit of the public who may be watching, who may see this, can you characterize so far the landscape with regard to federal funding and environmental initiatives? I just paint a picture of how things have gone, what has dried up, what may dry up. And so for the people who may want to be enriched by that information, what's your assessment of that?
Sure. We have several different funding sources and agencies that we tap into, particularly NOAA, Department of Energy, EPA, HUD, or some of the big agencies of monies that we spend. Programs that were programs that were passed through authorizations through Congress, like CDBG, and DR, and IDA funds are harder to go after because of the nature in which that funding was appropriated. Where we're seeing the most vulnerability and risks are the federal funds to the agencies that their climate priorities or environmental justice priorities are fundamentally being questioned, or there are questions about the criteria that were used to prioritize disadvantaged communities, including if they considered race-based or other criteria that are being questioned under the courts currently. We are moving forward with what we can move forward with, including some recent Department of Energy grant funding to improve our inventory, to improve how we're accounting for greenhouse gas emissions. There are other pools of funds that are in question, including FEMA and the BRIC program, which have direct community impacts and I think impact a lot of projects across the city, including environmental justice funds and WE Act, and the funding for Fordham and other partners that were going to be by our side doing this work. And so we're all trying to figure out what to do right now, what's stopping and what's starting, what's able to move forward and where we can't move forward. It is challenging because what's concerning is the federal government is also rescinding rules and other policy frameworks that allow for public participation, public comment on federal actions as they start to undo the policy and regulatory frameworks that guide a lot of this work. So we're also actively working with our law department and others to come up with legal strategies, other types of strategies to try to stop the defunding of our work and lift the restraining orders or other notices that our office has received to hold or freeze funding.
Okay, well, thank you for painting that picture and putting that out on the record. I think it's important to do that. And finally, you know the resolution, you've read it, you looked at it. Are there other benefits, in your estimation, to adopting this resolution? Softball.
Short answer is it makes us more competitive for the Climate Smart Communities grant program at the state, where, as Director Hutchinson said, we were able to receive resources last year to help enhance our greenhouse gas inventory, as well as potentially other state grant opportunities. They look highly on designating a community as a Climate Smart community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. And with that, we have no more questions for this panel. We appreciate the fact that we got 3 rounds of testimony. I heard it was going to be one person testifying for everybody, and then questions or whatever. And I like this format better, where everybody gets to, speak for their own agency, and that's the way I like it, and it was a pleasant surprise to see that that's how it all shook out. And so, yeah, we look forward to working with you going forward, and yeah, I'm just, yeah, we're just going to take a, minute recess or whatever. We have guests, and we have, okay, but. But, yeah, we're just going to recess for a second. I have to, yeah, and I want to say goodbye to the panel too. And so, coming right back, folks. Okay, so Okay, now we're going to start the public comment period. This is the boilerplate that I have to put on the record. Start here. Oh, yeah. Okay, I will now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal governmental proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant-at-Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant-at-Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on the legislation and resolution being heard today at this hearing. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant-at-Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council, that is COUNCIL, so that's testimony@council.nyc.gov. Within 72 hours of this hearing, audio and video recordings will not be accepted. And so I don't believe we have a panel. And so now we're going to the protocol for Zoom testimony. Okay, we'll now turn to remote testimony. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant-at-Arms will give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the Sergeant-at-Arms to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. And so I think that's where we're at now. Oh. Okay, right here? Yep. Okay, the first witness, no stranger to this council, someone who worked here for many years as a committee counsel back in the day. He's a representative of the Queens and Bronx Building Association, and his name is Robert Altman. So I recognize Robert Altman, but I have to wait for the sergeant to give the go-ahead.
You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you. As the chair said, I am Robert Altman. I'm here to testify on behalf of the pre-considered intro for the Queens and Bronx Building Association. First of all, the association would like to thank the council member and the Department of Environmental Protection for hearing our concerns about the length of time to get approvals on stormwater pollution prevention plans. An area of concern not only for the industry, but a number of council members have also expressed concern to us with the delays of the current setup creates regarding parks and other projects that are important in their district. So this bill represents an excellent first step in addressing everyone's concern. Second, we would like to request and look forward to working with your office, Mr. Chair, and the DEP's offices in the drafting of the regulations. We hope these regulations are drafted expeditiously so that other concerns can be addressed and so that we achieve the twin goals of speedy approvals and the minimization of stormwater pollution. Again, thank you, and we support the bill.
Thank you, Robert. As you heard during the testimony, the Adams administration and DEP is, deeply committed, to making sure that we get the best result with a, minimum of paperwork and, lengthy delays, and, we want a streamlined program that works for everyone. And we've had a good relationship to get to this good day, and we continue, and we pledge to continue that. I'd like to thank you and the Queens and Bronx Builders Association and, other organizations to provide, critical feedback as people who have to work under the SWIP program. It's been very helpful. to work with this. So I certainly appreciate your thanks, but please accept my thanks and the thanks of and my thanks to your members for in a very calm, sober, deliberate way, not complaining, but seeking to go forward and choosing to light a candle rather than curse the darkness. So we treasure our working relationship with you and other builders, and that will continue. You have my word. And have a good weekend, Robert.
Thank you. You too, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you bet. And next witness is Alia. I'm sorry. My eyes are not what they used to be. Next witness is Michelle Lubke from the Swim Coalition.
You may begin.
Thank you. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself again. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Lubke, and I'm the program manager at the Stormwater Infrastructure Matters, or SWIM Coalition. Thank you for the opportunity to deliver public testimony, and thank you to Chairman Gennaro and members of the committee for your leadership on behalf of environmental protection, climate resiliency, and protecting water resources in New York City. SWIM Coalition is a group of 70 organizations dedicated to ensuring swimmable and fishable waters around New York City through sustainable stormwater management practices, both green and gray infrastructure. SWIM Coalition has long advocated for nature-based solutions to address flooding, stormwater, and climate resiliency, not only because green infrastructure has the capability to manage water in highly urbanized areas, but also because of the myriad co-benefits associated with greening our cities. In terms of Intro 499, while the SWIM Coalition supports climate change and resiliency measures, we would like to see a broader implementation of green roofs in conjunction with solar, since the co-location of the two optimizes the function of both. And we reiterate what the DOB said about Local Law 9294. In terms of 1271, as environmental justice advocates, the SWIM Coalition supports the recommendations of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice to include the Environmental Justice Advisory Board in the process of developing the plans, reviewing the drafts, and proposing revisions of long-term sustainability plans like Plan YC with the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, and support giving the EJAB power to participate in the process, not just review and make revisions prior to the finalization of any long-term sustainability plans. In terms of Bill 30, the pre-considered 3757, the SWIM Coalition supports the DEP in fully implementing this Unified Stormwater Rule. We understand the intent of this intro to be streamlining the permitting process, and if so, we support. Additionally, we would like to emphasize that the stormwater rule would run more efficiently if DEP...
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Sergeant, I'd like to give the SWIM Coalition a little latitude. I have a long relationship with this organization. They're most productive in what they in what they bring to the committee. So please finish your statement.
Thank you. We believe that the Unified Stormwater Rule would run more efficiently if DEP has more staff, and the fee paid by the permittee should be spent on hiring DEP staff to administer the permits. The Unified Stormwater Rule is a strong defense against future flooding and must be preserved. In terms of Resolution 926, we support the city adopting the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge, and we will be submitting written testimony. Thank you so much for your time.
I want to thank you and all the good members of the SWIM Coalition for all of the value added and advocacy you've brought to the committee over the years. You should be proud of yourselves, and I order you to have a good weekend. How about that? That's my decree. So have a good weekend, and thank you for your patience and giving us the benefit of the SWIM Coalition's good views on these on the business, on today's business. Appreciate that. Okay, right. Okay. The next witness is Alia Sumro from the New York League of Conservation Voters.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Alia Sumro, and I'm the Deputy Director for New York City Policy at the New York League of Conservation Voters. Thank you, Chair Gennaro and members of the Committee on Environmental Protection for the opportunity to testify today. NYLCV strongly supports Resolution 926, which would declare that New York City adopts the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge. Climate Smart Communities is a New York State program that helps local governments take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. The program offers grants, rebates for electric vehicles, and free technical assistance. The impact of this proposal could be huge. To date, 9.6 million people over 400 municipalities around New York State live in a community that has adopted the New York State Climate Smart Communities Pledge. By taking this pledge, our city will be in a stronger position to access state funding with the Climate Smart Communities grant program. NYLCV urges the City Council to swiftly pass Reso 926. NYLCV also supports Intro 1271, requiring MOCEJ to provide drafts and propose revisions of Plan NYC to the Environmental Justice Advisory Board. This is a common sense bill since environmental justice should be intertwined with every step of the process of any sustainability proposals that are part of future Plan NYC amendments. Similarly, we also support Intro 1302, which would require MOCEJ to quadrilaterally support the long-term energy plan and the climate adaptation plan with its update to Plan NYC. This is another common sense bill that would consolidate and streamline some of the different reporting requirements that MOCEJ already does. And lastly, we support the concept of Intro 499 to conduct a year-long study to determine the feasibility of implementing solar-ready measures on commercial buildings. Solar is an essential component of the city's efforts to move away from fossil fuels generated electricity, both in the public and the private spheres. We recommend that the council work with DOB.
Thank you.
Please continue. Please continue, Ali. I want to get the benefit of what the league has to say.
Yes, thank you. We just recommend that the council work with DOB so that the bill is not redundant with existing DOB efforts. But in terms of things to consider, we would like to see this bill be more specific when it comes to identifying financing aspects of installing solar-ready measures. More specifically, what the availability or lack thereof when it comes to incentives, grants, and other financing tools at the federal, state, and city levels for commercial buildings. We also think that the bill should consider zoning and permitting impediments to solar installations. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Thank you, Alia. And please give my best to Julie and all the good folks at the New York League Conservation Voters. What would we do without you? And so really appreciate your patience and your willingness to give the league's valuable input on today's business. Appreciate it and have a great weekend. And the next witness, Christopher Leon Johnson.
You may begin.
Yeah, hello. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. Thank you, Chair Gennaro, for having this hearing today. So I'm here inside City Hall, part-time side. They said it was too late. Okay, whatever. But I'm here to support Resolution 926 that was sponsored by the Speaker, Adrian Deal Adams, and you, Mr. Gennaro. And the reason we need this resolution because it will unlock more money for electric cars and stuff like that. We need more electric car stations in the city of New York. There's a lot of electric cars in the city of New York, especially when it comes to Uber use and Lyft use. And we need more stations. Now, I want to call the city council, including you, Mr. Gennaro, to put a bill into the city council to allow electric car charge stations to be built with no community input, because what's going with like a fast track, like Intro 417, which Rick Russell put out, like with 417, which will allow the DOT to put bike lanes without no community input. You need to introduce the bill to allow the city to install car charging stations without community input. Because what's going on is that with the city, yes, carbon neutrality, this allowed the city to open up bike battery stations, bike battery swap stations, and electric bike vehicle charger stations with no community input, but it's always community backlash. And everybody know that all this about election time and Democrat Republican stuff But if you put the city, if you already advocate for the city yes, and you vote for the city yes for carbon neutrality, why are you trying to fight against the tide? I mean, it's getting ridiculous, Mr. Gennaro. Like I said, I think as you, as a chair of the city council committee, need to put your foot down and start calling out Joe Ariola about the city yes carbon neutrality, because that's and Vicky Palladino as the chair of the committee, because I know you're a great chair. You care about the environment. I know you do, but there's a lot of resistance when it comes to electric car vehicles to charter stations in these districts, especially in the more like Caucasian affluent districts, and this is getting ridiculous. I go electric cars all the time with Uber and DoorDash and Lyft. Why if I want to drive?
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Oh, wait, can I go further, Mr. General?
Christopher, please finish your thought.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. Like I said, why should I be driving or riding an electric car where the car breaks down because there's no power, and I can't even get a car in Bay Ridge, but I can't even access it. We can't even access it because the community doesn't want a car. They don't want it there because of election time. This is ridiculous. So, Mr. General, like I said, do the right thing. You need to start calling out Joe Ariola, Vic Palladino for spearheading for this carbon neutrality stuff, like with this electric car stations and bike battery stations. But there's a hearing on Monday, and you need to call it out. So, but thank you so much. Please call it out on Monday. On Wednesday, 25th, when Ariel have a hearing in fire emergency management. Please call it out. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just want to let you know that I'm a member of that committee. I will be there on the 25th. And I appreciate your advocacy and your passion. Those are the most, the last 3 minutes have been the most passion-filled of the whole hearing, and that's all thanks to you, Christopher. I appreciate your good input and your message received, and thank you very much. And don't be a stranger. Make sure you follow what we're doing here, and we want you back again, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Now I have to read something, right? If we have inadvertently missed anyone who registered to testify today and has yet to be called, please use the Zoom raise hand function if you are testifying remotely, and you'll be called in the order that your hand has been raised. If you are testifying in person, please come to the dais, and that is to actually see the sergeant. And seeing no one, I will now close the hearing. Thank you to the members of the administration and members of the public who have joined us today. Those who may be watching via stream, we thank you as well. Look forward to further engagement with all of you as the committee does the business of the people in future hearings. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend, and this hearing is adjourned.